When you get into a very emotional situation, we can start to make very stupid decisions because the emotion becomes very overwhelming and we start to just react. We'll lash out because we don't like what's happening. We'll shut down and close off and then not react or deal with the problem that's in front of us. There's a whole range of things that can be very negative that can come out of not controlling what your emotions are doing as you're outbursting during this horrible situation. Because of that, we need to have a few basic tools in place to tell us how to temper that emotion when we're in those crisis situations. My name is David Volson, and I am the creator of Emotional Embuffination. In this video, I want to just hand you a couple basic techniques that we can use to deal with those situations when you're feeling really emotional, when you're feeling very overloaded, and you just need to calm the heck down so you don't make really stupid decisions. The first technique that I want to offer you is a pretty basic one, and that is basically just to step back from what's going on. If you have the option to do this, walk away and cool down. Because over time, if you can just let yourself chill for a minute, it's old, it's basic, it's tried and true, but it's very relevant. If you can step back from the conflict, you can calm down. Give you an example of where this might be useful. You get a text message from your lover, and the text message says something that is infuriating, and you just go, oh my God, I gotta respond. You pick up your phone, you start tapping away, and then you send off something that you're gonna regret saying later. Or same thing with an email or something like that. That is the perfect opportunity to step back and calm down, because you don't have to respond this second. There's not something immediately in front of you saying, I need to give this person a response. You can step back. So when you feel yourself angry in those situations and you have the ability to step back from what's going on, do it. Because you're gonna come back a little bit calmer once you've had a second to step back, chill out, think about what's going on, and then you can make a better decision. The second technique that I will offer is mindfulness. I'm going to oversimplify this a little bit, but mindfulness practices involve essentially bringing your mind and controlling where your mind is going, because we have this tendency to jump all over the place. If I sit here and I think, okay, all these terrible things could happen. If I go to that thing tomorrow, this could happen, and this could happen, and this could happen. You drive yourself crazy, right? You're sitting here thinking about all the horrible what ifs, and as you're going through that process, none of those things are happening this particular second. We do the exact same thing with the past too. We'll sit there and say, oh my God, he said this to me, or she said this to me, and I can't believe they all saw me in this way, and it was horrible when they went through this, and here you're reliving this thing that's not going on right now. What we're doing is you're trying to actively bring your brain back to now. These things are not immediately in front of you. You can focus on your breath, you can focus on the sensations in your body, but you bring your brain to now. And when you do that, you can kind of shut off all these other things. And when you start to drift back to it and you start thinking, okay, what's the sensation in my hand? I mean, oh my God, when that thing happens tomorrow, it's gonna be so terrible. The second you catch yourself doing that, bring your brain right back again. And by doing that, you can calm yourself down. Another technique you can use is called pattern interrupts. And a pattern interrupt is something where you have an existing behavior pattern, where you start going through something that's kind of routine, you do this catastrophization, or you see it in somebody else, and you find a way to snap yourself out of it. And this can be in a literal sense too. I've even seen some situations where people will put a rubber band around the wrist, they'll tie it on there, and when they start feeling themselves doing something, or have their brain going into a place where it doesn't make sense, you'll pull the rubber band back and snap it. And then you go, ah! Just to disrupt your pattern of thinking and try to change what's going on. So find something, and again, this can be with other people, and you can even have other people and kind of talk ahead of time, like, hey, if you see me starting to do this thing, then here's what I want you to do. Just come in and do something that doesn't flow along with the normal pattern, so that I'm gonna get jarred out of it and go, wait a second. I see the routine I was going through and I need to calm down, and it just shakes up the thought process so that you can alter the behaviors that you're exhibiting. The last technique that I'll share with you in this video is the intentional engagement of rational thought. Now, this one's a little difficult because emotions are intentionally designed to shut off rational thought. Much of what emotion does is mutually exclusive from rational thought. Because of that, if you can find a way to engage the rational side of you, you aren't going to be acting in an emotional way. Let me give you an example. I recently had a court case where the other party started screaming at me and my client because The other side didn't like what was going on. And as this other person stomped off down the hallway, I turned to the client and said, okay, well, let's break down what was happening psychologically. And the second we started doing that and we started tearing apart the psychology of what was happening, you could feel the tension de-escalate. It suddenly became this sort of detached, objective thing where we're going, oh, here's what's going on, I see now. And it didn't feel so intense. It didn't feel like we were involved in the conflict. We were just sort of stepped back and looking at everything objectively. There's also a story in Viktor Frankl's book, Man's Search for Meaning. And in that book, he's describing his experiences in several different Nazi concentration camps, including Auschwitz. And at one point, he describes a moment where he was able to deal with some of the stresses that were going on in front of him by detaching and imagining himself walking around and analyzing and talking about the psychology that was happening at the concentration camps. And he presented himself as giving this whole speech. And so what he was doing there was he was detaching and saying, all right, I'm going to step back from the situation. I'm going to disengage the emotion because I'm using this rational thought, and I'm going to analyze what's going on. So this is the underlying basic technique here, is that if you can stop yourself for a second and start analyzing what's going on, you can say, all right, here's my understanding of what I'm doing, here's my understanding of what this other person or actor is doing in the situation, and you just break it down. Through all of those things, you can start to shut off the emotion. And if you can shut off the emotion long enough to analyze it, then you can then proceed to go on and make a better, at least informed decision, a thought out decision based on what this analytical thought process is going to give you. My challenge to you for this week is to watch anytime you have any sort of negative emotion, whether you're acting on it or not. Stop yourself and start analyzing it very intentionally. Go through and think, what am I doing? What's happening? And I'm going to give you another analytical framework, or an actual analytical framework to analyze emotional states in a subsequent video. So check that one out. Through that, I'm going to give you a paradigm that you can use to break down and understand how people are reacting emotionally. In the meantime, if you have not yet done so, please subscribe to my YouTube channel. Click on that subscribe button, and also check out the resources on my website, www.embuffination.com.